Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. I do do do. Do 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 do. Ba 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 la bow. Ba 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 la bow. Ba 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 la bow. Bow ba dow ba dow bow bow. That, everybody, was the theme for Thomas the Tank Engine, and I'm playing that theme in memoriam right out of my mouth because last night's SmackDown confirmed that Thomas the Tank Engine is now officially the second bestest, the second most important train in the history of the world ever. And that is because, everybody, the Tamina train is out the station now. There's no pissing stopping the Tamina train because Tamina pinned Bianca Belair on last night's SmackDown. That is a thing that happened. I saw it with my own eyes. And that's Bianca Belair, who, by the way, is challenging for the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania 37 in 28 days, something like that. And also the same Bianca Belair who won the Women's Royal Rumble match of 2021. Tamina pinned that lady on last night's SmackDown. That is a thing that actually happened.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Drew!
But aside from that monumental happening, I thought last night's SmackDown was a bit of a mixed bag. Some of it was good, some of it was utterly infuriating. Let's speak about it now as I go through all the WTF moments for last night's SmackDown. Hit the intro, little man over there. Mago, 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 mago. We are on the road to WrestleMania. Isn't that so cool, guys? Said Maggle Cole right at the top of last night's SmackDown. And I was thinking to myself, if only we were Maggle. If only we actually were. I'm just thinking at the start of last night's SmackDown while Maggle Cole is hyping up WrestleMania, Fastlane is such a pain in the arse, isn't it? Last night's SmackDown, as I said, it was good in places, but because of Fastlane, we couldn't really get going. We're building towards a thing that we shouldn't be building towards too. It's just annoying, isn't it? Last week on the WTF Moments for Friday Night SmackDown, which was published, by the way, on Tuesday, just in case you're wondering where that video is, it was published on Tuesday. I was stood here comparing Fastlane to that friend in the friendship group who was only in the friendship group because they are closest to the most biggest and the most popular friend in the friendship group. That's WrestleMania. Fastlane is the closest to it, so Fastlane is in the friendship group just by distance. But after watching this week's SmackDown and thinking, oh, we could be doing so much better, so much more juicy things on Friday Night SmackDown, Fastlane, go away. You are the plum tomato on the full English breakfast. Get that shit off my plate. Get Fastlane off the calendar. WWE, please. Here is what Daniel Bryan's promo essentially was on this week's SmackDown. Edge, you heard me say some things on last week's SmackDown, and even though I clearly said those things, I didn't really mean them. I sucked you in, Edge, even though I clearly said those things. And remember, Edge, you were a dick a long time ago, so with that in mind, I thought you would appreciate me going into business for myself. I sucked you in, Edge. I am Daniel Bryan, and I'm a bit of a dick. Muhahahaha! Exactly like that. And I understand why Daniel Bryan is resorting to this kind of stuff. He's made it known he's retiring from professional wrestling soon. WrestleMania 37 could be the last WrestleMania Daniel Bryan could be a part of. But he clearly said those things, and then despite clearly saying those things, went back on those things and said, ha 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 ha, Edge, you got sucked in. Is Daniel Bryan a bit of a dick? I'm making that a WTF moment here in 2021. I thought it was unthinkable. Unthinkable? Unthinkable. Not unthinkable, underthinkable. Unthinkable. And I know that they're both dicks, everybody. I know that Dolph Ziggler and Otis, my now former bae in Spirit Animal, that vacancy is now open. If you want to be my bae in Spirit Animal, the vacancy, the job opening, it's opened. Come on in, the water's lovely and mild. And I also know that because Otis is fat, WWE has to make fat people stupid. So I know that Otis is both a dick and he's stupid. But still, it's really weird to see Dolph Ziggler and Otis on the same team. Just think about everything that was going on this time last year to where we are now, and it's still, where everything that that happened last year at least, it's still just too raw inside my mind. So raw, it's an uncooked steak. It's barely even seared on the outer edges of that said steak. Oh, I like the steaks, I do. And I still haven't fully come to terms with the fact that the draft extension, a brand split in WWE, means that if you are a couple in WWE and one of you goes to Raw, other goes to SmackDown, you must break up. I still can't accept that Mandy and Otis aren't a thing anymore. Anyway, to try and salvage something from this entire situation, it is clear that Otis is very, 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 very forgiving. He's forgiven Dolph Ziggler, by the way. He was teaming with Dolph Ziggler on last night's SmackDown, therefore clearly Otis is still a babyface deep down. I love Otis still, but if you want to be my bait spirit animal, it's open.
Made a grave mistake, Corey.
You do not want to miss WrestleMania, said Corey Graves just like that. And I was thinking to myself, Corey, if there's going to be 45,000 people at each night of WrestleMania 37, I think I'll pass. Open air stadium or not, surely, but surely, it is way too soon for a massive humanity like that to be in the same place at the same time. I'm fine not going to WrestleMania this year, even though I can't, it's fine. So Nia is there. Reggie is looking at her and into the camera. But the pictures that we see that are supposed to be from the camera that Nia Jax has in her hands, they're coming from a different direction. Sami Zayn! Explain that one, will you? But let's speak about that segment a bit more, shall we? I know that Nia Jax and Reginald de Chardonnay, as he is known, nowhere apart from right here. As fantastic as he is, I know that both Nia and Reginald are both professional wrestling heels, but I've got to ask you the question, what was the point in any of that? All it did was go, ooh, Reggie can try on nice clothes, and ooh, isn't there lots of awkward turtles and shaky palm trees? Let me do it again. Isn't there lots of awkward turtles and shaky palm trees? Too much awkwardness for me in that segment. But as Corey Graves did mention, and I have verified by looking at that picture right there from TLC, last year, Reggie went to that shop to buy a suit he already owns. I ask you once again, dear viewer, what was the point in that segment on last night's SmackDown? So then we see Sami Zayn offering Kevin Owens the chance to be a part of his documentary. And while doing so, Sami Zayn was trying to convince KO to be a part of this documentary. In the words of Sir David Attenborough, I love you, Sir David, I know you're watching. He was doing that by saying this documentary, KO, it'll do massive numbers, just like Logan Paul. The single last WWE superstar I would come to expect mentioning the name of Logan Paul, it would be Sami Zayn, wouldn't it? Surely this has got to be the biggest WTF moment in the history of WTF moments. No, I'm not taking the piss here. This one is that severe. Surely Sami Zayn does not watch that part of YouTube. Sami Zayn watching Logan Paul being a twat? Oh, come on now, WWE. Now, normally, I must say that when Sasha Banks does that laugh, she always fits it into her promo in a nice position. It adds to what she's saying. But there is a reason I'm including that laugh there from the middle of her promo in the middle of the ring on last night's SmackDown on a show, of course, called WTF Moments. Go back and watch that portion of the promo and you will understand. And even though this show is called WTF Moments, I come to you with news. Actual factual news. It's news that I mentioned to you at the top of this video today, but news that I must mention once more just to hammer it home and make sure that you know it actually happened. Tamina pinned the 2021 Women's Royal Rumble winner and the number one contender for the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania 37, Bianca Belair, fair and square in the middle of the ring. It all rhymes. And of course you're asking yourself, Ross, that's got to be a WTF moment. But let me tell you, how can it be a WTF moment when Tamina, since the Royal Rumble event of 2021, has had 3 matches on Smackity Down, and guess how many matches Tamina has won? All 3. But I come to you with rather potential WTF moments heading forward, because after pinning the number one contender as well, of course, for the women's tag team titles, Bianca Belair, quite frankly, if we get to Fastlane and Natty and Tamina aren't in that women's tag team title match alongside Shania, that came out right, didn't it? Yes, it did. And Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, I'm calling bullshit. And quite frankly, dear viewer, if we find ourselves at WrestleMania 37 and Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks are having a bog standard singles match after Tamina pinned Bianca Belair on this week's SmackDown, if there's no triple threat to be seen for the SmackDown Women's title, I'm calling bullshit. Quite frankly, everybody, there is no stopping the Tamina train. We pulled out the station 3 weeks ago, and the train has been going down the same set of tracks for 3 weeks now. How do you stop a train that's been going down the same set of tracks for 3 weeks? I guess the train tracks might actually end soon, but until they do, there's no stopping her. But how? How could these two partners who don't get along coincide in their Women's Tag Team Championship title shot? How could they do it? How could they possibly get along and rise up to defeat the well-oiled machine that is the other tag team, also involved in the Women's Tag Team title match? We've done this so many times, WWE, man. Change the fucking script. I'm just sat there watching that utter bollocks on last night's SmackDown, and I'm thinking to myself, WWE, you hire quite literally 1 billion wrestlers. If you cannot build an entire women's tag team division with 1 billion wrestlers, and you got to resort to shit that we've seen so many times before, what are we doing here? What is it? Why are we doing the same thing again with the women's tag team titles on the main roster? And let's speak about the build to WrestleMania 37 if we're not going to factor in Tamina, who, by the way, does fully deserve to be in a triple threat match on the grandest stage of them all. Point at the Tamina in the sky for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Surely building up Sasha Banks, the established, proper good wrestling star on the main roster, against Bianca Belair, who is not established on the main roster, but still a very good wrestler on the main roster, all the same. Surely building up to a matchup with two very talented, two very charismatic superstars isn't as hard as what WWE are making it today. Why is Reginald the center of this feud? I love Reginald, but this is not the place for him. Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair should have no Reginald and no women's tag team titles, for that matter, involved whatsoever. Why are WWE making this so hard and in turn a lot worse than it could possibly be? It just leaves you scratching your head, doesn't it? What are they doing? And then big baldy bastard Baron Corbin says, I am not dressed to fight. And I was sat there thinking, but big baldy bastard Baron Corbin, you were the same big baldy bastard Baron Corbin, but a little bit different a couple of years ago. And a couple of years ago, you were ready and dressed to fight. Back in your Weatherspoons bartender days, you take off that snazzy blazer, you replace that blazer with a waistcoat, and you're ready to fight. What's wrong with you, big baldy bastard Baron Corbin? What's changed? And as well as being the center of both the women's tag team title feud and the SmackDown women's tag team title feud, Reginald is now the guest general manager, I guess, of Friday Night SmackDown. One segment we see with Nia, with Reginald saying, Nia, you should go and tell Adam Pearce you should have a shot next week on SmackDown at Sasha Banks' title. We come back from commercial break and then poof! There it is. Nia Jax has got that shot at Sasha Banks' title on next week's SmackDown. What is Reginald doing? What secrets does Reginald know about Vince McMahon or Brucey P or John Laurinaitis, whatever his name is? What secrets does he know about some higher-ups in WWE today? Because that guy has got power he shouldn't have, quite frankly. Jack and Matthew were joking about this on the Cultaholic Wrestling podcast this week, and I was sat there thinking, nah, the whole of WWE doesn't revolve around Reginald these days, and it turns out it does. He can do what he wants. He can book the matches. There's no stopping Reginald. This isn't the Reginald DeChardonnay I remember. I love the guy who did the flips in the ring and brought the wine and stuff like that. This has gone too far. And I guess I end this video of WTF Moments from last night's SmackDown with a little bit of a ponderer, a little bit of a ball tickler, a little bit of a chin waggler. What the hell was that? I've got no idea. But are you more excited for the prospect of Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan or Roman Reigns versus Edge as you stood here or sat down here today on Saturday? Because let me tell you, it's Bryan and Reigns for me. And after just the way Edge has been since he's come back to WWE, the fact that's a thing, the fact I would rather see Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns than Edge versus Roman Reigns, that's a WTF moment, surely. But speaking about Daniel Bryan, somebody needs to tell Daniel Bryan that Jey Uso definitely did say, I quit, in the midst of that Hell in a Cell match last year. Jimmy Uso did not die. He's still alive, but he did not die in that match for you to say that line on last night's SmackDown, Daniel Bryan. Let me tell you that. And that's it for all your WTF moments from last night's SmackDown. I do believe I've been Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic Wrestling. Did I miss anything? There's a chance of it. Let me know what they were in the comments down below. To be honest with you, I was just sat there basking in the glory of Tamina pinning Bianca Belair and therefore earning lots of shots at lots of different titles in the future, surely. Do not screw Tamina, WWE, like you did on so many occasions last year with Bayley and the cage and the karaoke competition on SmackDown. So many times you did her dirty, now do her clean. Bye.